Okay, I am going to share with you some information and examples for doing in-text citation. In-text citation refers to when you briefly reference within the narrative, within your text, the source, where you got the information that you are discussing. The reason why is that it directs readers to the Works Cited page so that they can find the source if they would like to. It should also be unobtrusive. It should not really interrupt the flow of your discussion. That's why we have an agreed upon way to do this, so that everybody knows how to do it. It's very simple. It's very unobtrusive because we don't want to interrupt the flow of our ideas when we're writing. In general, we'll see some different examples, but we have the author's last name and we have a page number. Okay, and it may or may not be enclosed in parentheses, and we're going to see the difference in just a minute. Okay, so here we have an in-text example. And if you read through this, you're going to see that it's a little bit repetitive. It's just for purposes of seeing an example of different ways to do that. So stop the video and read through this. Okay, now that you're back, the first sentence, we signal, that's the word that we use, we signal who the author is by stating his last name, Wordsworth. Wordsworth stated. And then I used a direct quote from his text, and that can be found on page 263. Let's look at the formatting. You notice we have quotation marks around the quote itself. Then we've got no punctuation, nothing. We've got a parentheses with the page number. We don't need to say page 263, just the number 263, parentheses, period. Now the second sentence expresses really the same idea, but in this sentence, we do not signal who the author is. So since that is the case, we put the author's name in parentheses. Author, page number. And if you notice, there is no punctuation. This is something that's different than APA. So author, page number, in parentheses. But the same rule applies. The period for the sentence comes after the parentheses. Now the third sentence, what they are doing here is giving us an example that you do not quote only, you do not cite only when you're quoting. You also cite when you're paraphrasing. Anytime you are getting information from another source, whether you're directly quoting it or whether you're paraphrasing it, you need to cite it. You need to tell us, if the page number is available, where it came from. So here I've used the author in the sentence, Wordsworth. So all I need to do is put the page number, page 263. All right, so let's break it down and look at just a few more examples. So in the blue at the top, this is the way the citation would look on the Works Cited page. Okay, so here in our example for in-text citation, in my first example, humans have been described by Kenneth Burke as symbol-using animals. I have included who the author is or who has said these words in my sentence. So since that's the case, I just have in parentheses 3 for page number 3. Now, second example, I do not include the author's name in my sentence. And since that's the case, I put the author in parentheses with the page number. Okay, I don't need to give the title of the book or anything else like that. The author's last name is enough. The reader can look at the Works Cited page and find the rest of the information. However, I strongly recommend that you do the first example. At this point in your writing career, I think it is best if in your sentence you signal the source of the sentence, like the first example here. Okay, so that is my strong recommendation. So when you are using some quotes from the articles that you need to use for this assignment, give the name of the author, state that person's name in the sentence. Now you have some flexibility, first name, last name. This is something that's changing right now, but you can put last name only. Okay. All right, so the examples we just looked at are when we know who the author is, but often you may be wanting to reference a report or an article that you found, a credible article that you found online. And if that's the case, if you do not know who the author is, then you can give the title of the piece. Okay? So I think it would probably be best to put it in parentheses here. And I have impact of global warming. Warming is the name of the source. So I put that in parentheses. It is a title of an article or a report, so I need to use quotation marks around the title, and then page 6. Now this is what that source would look on the Works Cited page. We have the title of the article, we have the name of the source, the year, and when we got it. So this is clearly the way the source is formatted tells me that it comes from a website, a web source, web-based source, not a book. Like our examples that we are using for this writing assignment, they all come from a book, so they have a different way of formatting. So let me go back a slide. So here we have the same thing. The source for this particular quote is the name of this article, page 6. Okay. Now, sometimes we have some different exceptions. What if, for example, you have an author that has, you get something from Robert Miller and something from Amanda Miller. And if that's the case, put R for Robert, A for Amanda, and I will be able, as the reader, to easily tell which article is R. Miller and which article is A. Miller. Now, sometimes there are works by multiple authors. And if there are only 2 authors, what you need to do is include the last name of each one and join it with and. You don't need any punctuation, just 2 last names joined by and. Okay, so the authors are Strong and Ellis, and the information is found on page 23. Now, if there are more than 2 authors, then this is what you do. There are 3 authors or more. I take the name of the first author because the order of the authors is an indication of who is the lead author, who's the second most important author, who's the third most important author. That's how authors of academic work organize it. So Smith is the first author, he's the lead author, so I just do Smith et al. Okay? And I'm still following my same rule. Here I am naming the authors in my sentence. So I just need to give the page number in parentheses at the end, followed by the period. Okay, now let's say you don't want to name them in the beginning. You could say the author's state, and then in parentheses, Smith et al., 76. period is at the very end after the parentheses. Again, I'm going to say that I think it's best for at this point in your career that you name the author in the sentence. Okay, now there are some other examples. Now, let's say you want to quote somebody. You read an interesting book or article or something on the web, and somebody gave you a good quote, but the person in the article who said the thing that you want to quote is not the author. This is what you have to do. So here we have a quote by Ravitch. Okay, so Ravitch argues that high schools are pressured to act as social service centers, and they don't do that well. It's quoted in Weissman on page 259. So I have signaled that the person who said this is Ravitch, and I'm telling you that you can find it in Weissman on page 259. So if I want to track down the source, I'm not going to look for R. I'm going to go here and I'm going to look for Weissman in the Works Cited page. So look how this is formatted, QTD, standing for quoted in Weissman. Okay. Now, let's say that you want to cite different things within a single article. Okay, you can pause this and read this. And when you come back, we'll talk about it. Okay, now that you're back, we could see that first I have quoted something from Romeo and Juliet. And then I have quoted something that the scholar said about this piece, this play. But I got them both from the same article or the same chapter in the book. So if that's the case and I don't have anything else in between my discussion, I can do this. This is the name of the source, the author who wrote this. And the first quote can be found on page 138. And the second quote is found on page 141. Okay. So this probably isn't, you're not going to need this for this paper, but just to be aware that this would be how you would do it if you would be quoting different things within a single source. Okay, we don't need to talk too much about this, but I wanted to share this with you. Here we have an example where we are quoting an episode of a television show. This is actually my favorite television show. I know this episode. This is the title of the episode, and this is the timestamp. This is where the reader can find this quote. And then this is what the entry in the Works Cited page would look like. So if you notice, this is the name of the episode, Hush. Here I have it in parentheses, Hush. And here's the time. Okay? So as I said, you are not going to use this in your paper, but I just wanted to show you how there's a rule really for everything, whatever source it is that you're using. Okay. If there is not a page number, and this is important, guys, because there is conflicting information about this. If there is not a page number, you only need to give the author. Okay. Some places tell you can count the paragraph number, but I'm going to say you only need to do that if the original text has counted paragraphs. If it doesn't have counted paragraphs, then do it exactly like this, only the name of the author. And I am out of time, so you